Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It's not easy. If you go to buy a new truck, it costs more than $250,000.
Threats of slowdowns at the Port of Vancouver as truckers fight a new policy meant to improve air quality.
We're left with very few options but these sorts of tactics.
More protests to come despite the frustration of drivers. Why defenders of BC's old-growth forests say they won't be swayed.
Really celebrate culture and to just share that with others as well.
Plus, celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Today is National Indigenous Peoples Day, and we begin with how it was recognized around parts of British Columbia. A massive drum circle in Vancouver with hundreds of school kids using ceremonial instruments they made themselves. Celebrations across the country of Indigenous contributions, cultures, and communities. Also a time to reflect on the resilience, strength, and bonds forged in the face of hardship and historical wrongs. In Victoria, the day started with a land recognition.
Sharing culture, growing up, knowing who you are as an Indigenous person, your languages, your cultures, and as a non-Indigenous person, having recognition of the territories that you live in and the cultures that surround you is of vital importance. And days like today really do show us that we are making some progress on all of these fronts.
And as part of this day tonight, we're also looking at a new garden in East Vancouver that will be cared for by the Aboriginal Mothers Centre Society. They're creating the space to help single moms and their children reflect and heal. Our Gianpaolo Mendoza was there as they broke ground earlier today.
I think we have some huckleberries here somewhere, maybe even salmonberries. There's strawberries. My name is Leona Brown. I am Gitsan and Nishka. Today is an opening of this park at Oxford as a planter day and getting the community together. It's an Indigenous food forest. It's just a space to showcase all the Indigenous plants that are Indigenous or cultural to the West Coast as much as possible, but giving urban Indigenous people the opportunity to see what those plants are, how do they look, and which ones that we can eat and which ones are for medicine. I brought some tobaccos, plants that will be planted here. What I typically use is I dry them out and I pray to the other plants that I'm harvesting. And I put it down and pray that the plants and medicines that I'm harvesting go to the people that need it.
All right. Next.
Single moms, we're alone a lot of the times. A lot of us don't have extended family, which is why they end up in the Mother Center, because there's no extended family to help them. And even if there is, it could be a toxic relationship. So this space will provide them just some calmness, some prayer time to make their futures better with their children. It's very important for that as well. So this means a lot. To see the community help is absolutely wonderful. And I hope this many people come to just hang out and get to know each other and heal together and reconcile and decolonize and have a better future as we come out of COVID.
What a wonderful garden. That was put together by GP Mendoza, and we will have more coverage of National Indigenous Peoples Day coming up later in the show. To other news now, some BC truckers are warning Canada's largest port could see job action as they fight a new policy banning older trucks from the waterfront. The rule will bar rigs older than 12 years old from the Port of Vancouver. CBC's Isabel Regam joins us live with more on the potential disruptions. Isabel, what are you hearing?
Anita, the United Truckers Association says its concerns about the rolling truck age program have been ignored. The union argues it unfairly burdens small operators with massive costs in a bruised economy. Under the program, container trucks with engine and exhaust systems older than a decade will have to be retrofitted or upgraded, or they'll be turned away from the port. It's meant to improve air quality across Metro Vancouver, and the Port Authority says the program begins September 15th. It was supposed to start in February, but got delayed when the federal transport minister ordered more consultations.
It should be reversed because at this financial hard timings, it's not easy. If you go to buy a new truck, it costs more than $250,000 plus interest plus maintenance.
Claims more than 80% of trucks are already following the new rules, and that the ban will impact the remaining 20%, about 300 to 400 trucks. Meanwhile, the BC Trucking Association, a province-wide advocacy group, says the rules are necessary.
This has been a program that was announced over a decade ago. It was enacted back in 2012. The industry has had a lot of time to adapt and be prepared for this and moving forward. And there comes a point when we need to say enough. It's time to move forward.
The port says the program is expected to significantly reduce air emissions from trucking activities in the region, including an estimated 93% decrease in particulate matter, which is a known carcinogenic air pollutant. Singh says about 1,200 of their members will vote on July 1st on whether they want to strike, which could create further supply chain issues. Anita?
Isabel Regam live for us tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
More direct action and disruptions from the protest group Save Old Growth are expected later this week. Dozens of its members have already been arrested at highway blockades this year. As John Hernandez reports, their methods to top old growth logging in BC may be polarizing, but members believe their drastic tactics are the only way.
Come on, everyone wants to save the damn trees, but you're in my way.
You could call it an introductory class to civil disobedience.
Come on.
This daily session is how organizers of the group Save Old Growth prepare members to occupy major highways.
Most people don't go around thinking like, I'm going to go out and intentionally block a road and get arrested. So they have to, it takes some time to learn and to unlearn that arrest equals bad. So here we're not going to want to ignore the person completely.
Tim Brazier is among the many members who have been arrested this year and now face mischief charges. But it's all part of the plan to raise awareness for their cause and send a message to government.
Nonviolent civil resistance is a way of life where you're kind of saying to government, there's nothing you can do to me. You're creating this existential threat and you can do whatever you want to me. I'm still going to keep coming back.
Save Old Growth was born out of another climate activist group, Extinction Rebellion. Members like UBC graduate Ian Weber say they wanted to start a more high-risk and effective movement with a singular objective. They settled on ending old growth harvesting in BC.
A new campaign with a demand in the name of the campaign so that even if anyone wants to report on us, they have to say our demand.
Last week, shutdowns on major highways on Vancouver Island, in Richmond, and in Vancouver, and no shortage of angry motorists. Social movement experts say disruptions like this can prove effective, but also polarizing.
These kinds of disruptive strategies, they raise awareness around the issue, but they may not win over support among the broader population.
And while even members admit their methods can be challenging, they feel there is no alternative.
We have a short period of time to get the government to actually act and to do what's in everybody's best interest. We're left with very few options but these sorts of tactics.
They can no longer ignore this crisis anymore, that old growth trees are still being cut down in 2022 when we know just how threatening the climate emergency is.
The group says it's in talks with the province, while the Ministry of Forests says an old growth ban isn't coming, at least for now. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The trial of the man accused of sexually extorting Port Coquitlam teen Amanda Todd is now in its third week. The jury has heard from a series of Dutch police officers who investigated Aidan Coban nearly a decade ago. As Jason Proctor reports, today was the first time Amanda Todd's name has been linked to files found on his computers.
The jury at Aidan Coban's trial has heard a great deal of technical evidence in the past 3 weeks. About computers, about digital investigative forensic techniques, and about a search that led to the seizure of computers, a laptop, and a hard drive at the bungalow where Coban was arrested in the Netherlands in 2014. But today, for the first time, one of the police officers who analyzed the contents of those computers testified about finding a number of files with the name Amanda Todd on 2 hard drives, including one that appeared to be attached to a 260-second-long video. Aidan Coban is on trial for sextorting Amanda Todd from 2009 to 2012, when she was between the ages of 12 and 15 years old. The Crown claims Coban came into possession of topless images of Amanda Todd and used an array of fake social media accounts to stalk her through the internet, demanding sexual images in exchange for promises not to expose her to friends, family, and classmates. Coban was arrested in January 2014 after police mounted a covert operation on the holiday bungalow where he appeared to be living, installing cameras and microphones when he was not there. The Dutch chief inspector who led that operation testified about the dramatic arrest that occurred a few weeks later when he returned with 2 plainclothes officers to put Coban behind bars. Inspector Jory van Schijndel said they hoped to catch the 44-year-old at his computer, entering the 1-story brick building silently, but Coban got up to go to the bathroom and emerged with an iron pipe. The officers said he figured the suspect caught sight of his team in a mirror. They moved on him in the hall, with Coban cutting his right eye on a radiator before the officers could handcuff him, blindfold him, and stick headphones over his ears so he wouldn't be aware of what was happening as officers removed the covert surveillance devices. Coban watched from the prisoner's box as Van Schijndel detailed the operation and was asked by a prosecutor if he could identify the man he arrested in the courtroom. Van Schijndel had been facing the jury but turned to look directly at Coban, lifting his arm and identifying the man he arrested as the accused, Aidan Coban. Coban has pleaded not guilty to the charges. His lawyers have questioned the Dutch investigators' use of a keylogger and another program meant to ensure files aren't added to the hard drive in the process of trying to copy its contents. The police have insisted they were careful to make sure that didn't happen. The trial is expected to last for 7 weeks. Jason Proctor, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police have arrested a suspect wanted in connection with a deadly hit and run that happened Sunday night on the city's west side. A 24-year-old man was walking close to his home in Kitsilano when he was hit and killed by an alleged speeding driver who is accused of leaving the scene. Police have arrested a 25-year-old suspect at his South Vancouver home, along with a 63-year-old family member who they believe acted as an accomplice. They've also seized a car. Police have yet to recommend charges, and the investigation is ongoing. Surrey's mayor is pledging to protect an extremely productive 220-acre piece of farmland in the city's Campbell Heights neighborhood. I first brought you this story a couple of weeks ago, and that farm is owned by the feds and leased to the Heppel family, who has farmed it since the 70s. The piece alone is responsible for millions of BC's vegetables. Joining me now is the Vice President of the Surrey Farmers Institute, Tristan Bauman. Thanks for being with us.
It's good to be with you, Anita.
Tristan, Mayor McCallum says if re-elected, he'd put in an offer to buy the farmland from the feds, and if that offer is successful, he'd then keep it for farming. Now, there are a lot of ifs in that statement. How confident are you that this parcel can be saved by him and in general?
You know, Anita, we've received so much support in the last couple of weeks on this issue. There's 25,000 signatures on the petition to have the land, to have the official community plan changed, amended, so that the land can be protected indefinitely, and to have the land placed into the ALR. And those are the things that we think will really make the difference. We've had so much support on this, and we're really grateful. And we appreciate the mayor's support. The things that he said about the land being vital to the food supply and needing to be protected for agriculture are absolutely correct.
Have the feds been in touch with you or the Heppels, or have you heard from anyone else about how to actually save this?
We're still trying to figure out what can be done at the federal level to prevent the land from being sold off and developed into industrial at the federal level. But we've had MPs reach out to us and that have been very supportive, and we really appreciate that.
Tristan Bauman is with the Surrey Farmers Institute and also Heppel's Potato Farm. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will, of course, continue to keep you up to date on that story as things change. Okay, today marks the first day of summer, and as Januaries go, even this one has been wetter than usual. But as Leanne Young reports, forecasters say the heat is just around the corner.
When you get all of New Brighton Pool pretty much to yourselves, it's hard to be upset with Mother Nature.
We like swimming with the rain because it's in outside pools. What? Yeah. What are you saying? And we're gonna get wet anyway.
Even if it's raining, sometimes it's even better because the pool's warm and the steam is coming off it. It feels like you're in Norway or something like that. It feels like you're on a holiday for a couple bucks.
But when the weather has been all upside down, even if you don't mind the cold, you still need to make some sacrifices.
We brought floaties to swim in the lake, and it was, nope, not the floaty day. She was wearing shorts.
Snowy and icy, but this time last year we had floaties and bathing suits, and yeah, not this day.
January, Junember, whatever you call it, the stats show BC has been drearier than usual.
We've seen over 100% of June normal rains in the first 2 weeks.
Temperatures have been cooler than seasonal as well. There is a silver lining, a much quieter wildfire season.
We're sitting at 166 fires for this year. Last year at this time, we were already at 310, so we're below what we saw this time last year by a significant number.
But just in time for the start of astronomical summer, the weather is about to turn. So if the conditions today already scored high points in your books...
8.5. Yeah, that checks out. 8 3/4. That checks out for me.
That's an A. That's pretty high.
It's a good day.
Fold up the umbrellas and dig out the sunscreen. Some 10 out of 10 sunny skies are on the horizon. Leanne Young, CBC News, Vancouver.
I mean, I might keep my umbrella out just as a nice sunshade.
It is Vancouver, after all.
Oh, yeah, that too, yeah. But this is so nice to have after so long.
Yeah, I think we really deserve it this year, and it is coming, just not immediately. We've seen showers this afternoon, and they will continue on and off this evening, and in fact, overnight. But tomorrow morning, we'll see sort of the last of that precipitation for us here on the South Coast. Still going to see more precipitation for areas such as the North and South Caribou, and also for the Eastern Columbia or the Columbia Mountains. We still have a risk of heavier rain on Wednesday into Thursday. Right now, we're looking at 15 in Pitt Meadows, 17 at Vancouver Airport, and it was a bit unsettled today. We saw a lot of activity around Prince George and Kamloops with a few lightning strikes, and again, that is a risk overnight and in through tomorrow morning, and then we'll see things drying out just after about 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll start to see the end of the showers, and by the afternoon, we should be into a nice mix of sun and cloud with those temperatures up near 18 at its highest tomorrow.
18 sounds pretty good. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Well, for an Indigenous woman in Prince George, braiding has become her passion. Now, people are traveling for hours to put their hair in her hands. Jen Jack of the Chelslata Carrier Nation adds pops of color for style and personality. Now, since braids are a symbol of strength and wisdom in her culture, some of Jack's clients travel up to 7 hours to see her, and the benefits are mutual. Jack has found healing through braiding after losing her mother last year.
It's just with tradition of braiding and how sacred and important our hair is. It really is our strength, and it can take on a lot.
Jack has been teaching braiding classes and hopes to do more. And although her mother is gone, Jack says she remains by her side in spirit. Well, to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, we've asked to learn some phrases and greetings in Indigenous languages. Our first one is spoken by Sarah Tom, who tells us how to acknowledge one another in her DT Dot language and tell people hello.
Ukwakluxuich, ukwakis chakuba, DT Oxips, Iachtuxits Cluus, Six Deated. Hello, everybody. My name is Chakuba. I am a DT Dot woman. I come from Cluus. I speak the DT Dot language. One of the phrases that I would like everybody to learn is Uhwa Cluck. Is that you? That is our common greeting for hello. Uhwa cluck. Uhwa cluck. We want to have that word normalized everywhere because whenever you go into grocery stores, restaurants, or see people on the streets, you hear people saying hola and aloha, hello. So just to have it normalized and be in there with all the other languages, uhwa cluck, uhwa cluck.
From orcas on the west coast to right whales on the east coast, some marine mammals are struggling, and coming up, we see and hear about efforts to help cetaceans as the world around them changes. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. A Manitoba Cree man adopted as a child didn't know much about his birth family's heritage. His quest to learn more led him to a career in archaeology. And Stephanie Krem tells us about his studies into Manitoba's recent and distant past.
And I would come here and just be fascinated by all the different activities. It's about a 700-year-old campsite, boreal forest.
It was on trips as a child to the Manitoba Museum that Kevin Brownlee learned about life in the North. He was adopted and raised in Winnipeg, but he always knew his birth father was Cree and from northern Manitoba.
In the early 70s, northern Manitoba was anything north of Winnipeg, so I had no idea where home was. The really thick bone layer that is shown is an 1,100-year-old communal bison hunting.
It was his interest in learning more about his Cree heritage that led him to where he is today, working as the curator of archaeology at the Manitoba Museum.
Archaeology was that sort of tangible connection to heritage, but at the same time was that sort of door that opened to getting me into the communities.
Reflecting on his life, Brownlee says if he had been raised by his birth parents, there's a good chance he might not have ended up in archaeology, saying that Indigenous communities have a tenuous relationship with the field.
When I actually started in my career, I had people in the community saying, you know, well, you're a trader. And I'd be like, what do you mean? And they said, well, archaeology is what's done to us, not by us.
At times, he was the only Indigenous person working on a project, but things are changing. Brownlee says he sees more and more Indigenous people entering archaeology.
It's a really interesting time doing archaeology because communities are becoming more and more asserting their rights over the heritage. And for me, it's just such a wonderful time to be here and seeing the community sort of saying, yeah, this is important to engage our youth, to empower our youth with a sense of identity.
That heritage can mean anything from studying a traditional bison hunt to more contemporary artifacts of culture, like modern art.
It doesn't really matter from my perspective if it's like a set of moccasins that was made by an auntie, or a 5,000-year spear point, or a contemporary piece of Indigenous art. This is this unbroken connection of who we are and as expressions of ourselves.
For Brownlee, archaeology is more than just digging up old bones. It's forging a connection to his past and reclaiming space in a field of study that often excluded Indigenous perspectives. Stephanie Krem, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Whales on Canada's coastlines are struggling to adapt to a rapidly changing ocean environment. At the forefront of cetacean research, young Canadians are working to help, and they're strategizing new ways to protect whales in our waters and better understand their complex and highly intelligent lives. This is the next part of our series, Coastlines.
Whales and other cetaceans thrive in our biologically rich waters. From the Atlantic to the Arctic to the Pacific, you can see cetaceans from pretty much every shoreline across the country. And I think that's something that's extraordinary to think about. I'm Connell Bradwell. I'm a wildlife conservationist here in British Columbia.
And I'm Erica Porter, a fisher here in Nova Scotia.
We are the hosts for Coastlines, a CBC series that brings together young Canadians who are working to save our animals, plants and habitats on all 3 of Canada's coasts.
And today we're talking about whales. With Canada having the largest coastline on Earth, it isn't any wonder that we have the largest animals, whales.
North Atlantic right whale is a whale, so it's huge. Being up close to them, it's such a special feeling.
This is Delphine, an assistant scientist at the Canadian Whale Institute. Each summer, she spends time out on the research boat conducting surveys and gathering information to try to uncover the mysteries that surround these enormous whales.
On a typical day on the water, we'll collect photographs to know which individual whales are on the water, who are we seeing, and we'll also collect oceanographic data. We'll focus on which species they're feeding on, and that allows us to get a clearer picture of what habitats the whales might be looking for.
I have so many questions. So what did they learn?
What we learned was that right whales, for example, are on the Scotian shelf nearly year-round.
This is so important because throughout the North Atlantic right whale's habitat, there are a lot of overlaps and conflicts with human activities. These include shipping lanes, where the whales could travel through and get hit by boats, or fishing areas where they risk entanglements. Delphine and her team need to know where this conflict is most likely happening, so they can try to solve it. But this is becoming more and more difficult despite industry support.
Since 2010, there's been a shift in their distribution. And that means that in the areas that we were protecting them, they're not there, so they're not being protected. And that's in part due to a shift in their food. That's a direct example of climate change in action.
The climate crisis is forcing right whales to change their movement. And they're not the only cetacean that's doing this. Up in the Arctic, Katie Florko is investigating how the unicorns of the ocean, better known as narwhals, are getting on.
I am part of a collaborative team that is working together to understand a region called the Last Ice Area at the tip of northern Ellesmere Island.
Her research is in a really remote part of Nunavut. While local Inuit knowledge holders know a lot about narwhals near their homes, there's still important data to be collected for Western science too. So Katie and her team traveled north to survey for marine mammals.
We brought with us a normal DSLR camera that was taking photos every couple of seconds. And we also brought an infrared video camera, hoping to pick up, seals that are blending in on the sea ice.
But they found a surprise. Narwhals, some of the farthest northern records of narwhals ever, and they were pretty excited about it.
Katie believes this sighting was a result of receding sea ice, giving the narwhals access to an area that would otherwise be impassable before. Sighting these narwhals wasn't the only thing they discovered, though.
We thought the infrared video would help us detect seals on the ice, which it did, but it also helped us detect narwhal in the water. The narwhal themselves showed up as a little hotspot in the water, but what was more surprising is that we also saw what we call a fluke print in the water behind them.
What is a fluke print?
It's a patch of calm water left behind on the surface. It's usually formed by a passing cetacean, kind of like a footprint. Tracking a species like the narwhal that are so elusive is a major challenge, and any advancement in technology is a big deal.
This is amazing that despite all the challenges facing these animals, they're still finding ways of surprising us. Here on Vancouver Island, we're on the home range of a very special type of orca, and one that's close to my heart, the southern resident killer whale.
There are only 73 of these whales left. The southern resident orcas are a genetically unique species of orca in the world. They have their own language, diet, culture. We even know each individual by name and personality.
Gloria Pancrazi is a documentary filmmaker and activist working with the critically endangered southern residents. Cetacean culture is something that Western science is just starting to learn about. And for the southern residents, this includes a number of different traditions.
When the family groups reunite, they have specific traditions to celebrate this reunion.
Think of it like an orca party.
These orcas are so connected to one another and love so deeply. They have a part of the brain dedicated to empathy that we humans do not have. So they are truly remarkable.
The loss of this population is being driven by multiple factors.
The first one, the main one, is that their main food source, salmon, is also facing extinction. So the orcas are essentially starving to death. The second one is noise disturbance, which makes it harder for the whales to find food and to communicate with one another. And the third one is toxins and pollutants. All these are connected to the climate crisis.
Yep, climate change. And like Gloria mentioned, the southern residents' main food source is declining. Salmon rely on both healthy ocean ecosystems and upstream river ecosystems where they breed, and this makes them extra vulnerable.
The salmon are really temperature-sensitive species, and so the warming waters is killing them.
All of this means that through salmon, southern resident orcas are uniquely connected to the land, bringing them in close contact to us.
You can probably feel just how interconnected this all is. And so I hope that with my work, I can help get real systemic change. I hope that when people think about saving the orcas or think about fighting the climate crisis, I hope they know that this means showing up as an ally, that it means amplifying Indigenous movements for sovereignty and taking bold action. And I also hope that we can learn from these orcas because they work together through anything that comes their way. And this solidarity is key to taking on these big global issues we're facing.
That is another one of our episodes from Coastlines, and of course we have those every week. We're turning to learn another Indigenous word now. This word is in the Nuchanath language, and it's from our very own Wamish Hamilton. It's about a crucial step involved in learning and understanding.
Hi, my name is Wamish Hamilton. I'm originally from the Hupatchison First Nation on Vancouver Island, but I live and work here in the city of Vancouver. I want you to learn this word in Nuchanath, which is my language. The word is na'ah-tah. Na'ah-tah. It means listen. And it's important to know because listening is the basis for teaching, learning, and understanding all things, but most especially each other. Clayco, clayco.
An astonishing web of accusations leveled against a former Abbotsford police officer. A CBC investigation tells the story of alleged sexual assault victims and asks why their complaints were simply shelved.
We're just curious. This is the first day of summer. What do you think about the first day of summer?
So, it's not too bad at all. It's not cold.
No, it's not really nice, you know. No, it's not summer. No, not for me, no.
That's a pretty warm jacket for summer, isn't it?
Yours, eh?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I got it. Bye.
It's great. I love it. It's nice. It's although it's not so hot, but it's beautiful. Vancouver has always been my choice.
What do you think about the first day of summer?
Oh, it's great.
See?
It's great.
Are you from Vancouver?
No, we're not.
Where are you from?
Sudbury, Ontario.
Oh, no wonder you think it's great. We think it's a terrible day.
Actually, our weather was much nicer than your weather was.
Is that right?
We kind of, I don't know, every time we come here, the weather's lousy.
Do you know we have mountains right over there? Honest, you probably haven't seen them yet.
No, not yet. Not with the fog, eh?
So no complaints about the weather at all?
No. Absolutely none.
I like the rain. It's good. It's good for our environment.
I like your outfit.
Yeah.
Have a good summer.
Yeah, you too.
Okay.
What do you think of the weather we've been having, all the rain?
Oh, this is hard.
It's worse than winter right now. We had better days in the winter. I know we did. Wearing shorts in the winter.
You've got your umbrella there.
Yes.
Prepared for rain?
You betcha. Always prepared for rain in Vancouver.
What do you think of the weather we've been having?
It's okay. You get used to it, but it can be depressing. It gets a lot of people depressed, I think.
This month's non-stop rain has kept people armed with umbrellas.
It's usually associated with depressions and that. In the months where we get a lot of rain, the people who are depressed, particularly people who have come from the prairies, where you get a lot of sunshine, find it very difficult.
Stubborn low fronts coming off the Pacific Ocean are the reason for the bad weather. So far, the Lower Mainland has received more than twice the amount of rain it normally gets for the whole month of June. That's kept sunbathers in hiding, kept fair weather businesses empty, and wilted many gardens.
But I've never had so much difficulty with those vegetables out in the backyard there. Well, it's just been too cold for them, and they've turned blue. They do that if it's too cold.
There's no reason for you to live in Vancouver and say, it's raining today. You can still go out and walk in Stanley Park. You can still go out and walk around anywhere. You can still go to the shopping malls. You can do all of the things that you want to do. It's just not quite as nice having rain dripping down your face.
You look like you've got some sun from somewhere.
Yes.
Where?
From a suntan bed. It's the only way to do it.
Well, there's one nice thing about bad weather. It makes it much easier to find a good spot on the beach. And rain or shine, the West Coast view is always great.
Tonight, a difficult but important story out of Abbotsford about sexual assault allegations and intimidation dating back decades from men and women who were all teens at the time. Most didn't know each other, but all point fingers at the same man, a former Mountie. Paul Hunter began investigating more than 15 years ago after a BC man came forward. Some of the alleged victims will have their stories told publicly for the first time. And a warning, the details are disturbing.
There was never a moment that was anything that was less than sickening and frightening and disgusting to me through that whole period.
Graham Wilson is effectively the reason this story is being told. This video is from 2007. We'd sat down with him because his godmother in British Columbia cold called me one day and said, "Can you talk to Graham? He's a mess." Graham then told me that when he was a teenager back in the 1980s, he'd been sexually assaulted, raped by a Mountie, though the accusation was unproven. Then Graham told me there were multiple other victims. But even then, 20 years later, nobody outside the police knew who they were or how to find them. It's only now that we can finally tell their stories.
I was repeatedly assaulted and victimized and stalked by Constable Don Cook while he's wearing his RCMP uniform.
Definitely Abbotsford was my home. I played my hockey here, and then of course...
Bob Callan is one of the other men and women now alleging sexual assaults by that Mountie. He took us to one of the places where he says it happened to him as a young teen, a hockey rink in Abbotsford, BC. Don Cook, the Mountie, was also Callan's hockey coach. That's him on the right, with Callan's team in 1985. Cook also coached this team with younger players, the team sponsored by the RCMP itself.
It's been a long time, and I don't think there's a day that goes by that you don't remember kind of things that have happened and things that will never go away and you'll remember for the rest of your life, and they're not always the memories you want to listen to, or remember, that's for sure.
Callan has described assaults in the showers in Cook's sports car at Cook's house. He has never before spoken publicly about any of it. He and others complained to police in the 2000s, but no charges followed. Fear of stigma kept him and others from speaking out publicly. Likewise, fear of retaliation.
Did you complain at the time?
I never complained because I was told that because of his position, because of his knowledge with policing, that I would be killed. I would vanish. Nobody would ever find me.
He told you that?
Yes, he did. If I said anything to anybody.
There's a $100 bill on the counter.
Back in 2007, it was Graham Wilson's call to CBC that led us eventually to Bob Callan, and Callan in turn led us eventually to another man, Tom Thiessen, who, like Callan, is now speaking out, but asked that his face be hidden. He told us that as a 14-year-old, Cook befriended, groomed, then sexually assaulted him.
Not wrestled, but held down and basically raped, right? And it's very sickening.
In fact, he says Cook befriended Thiessen's whole family, so much that Thiessen's parents put Cook's photo on the wall at the Thiessen home, where it hung for years. It sickened Tom, but he kept quiet as the alleged assaults continued, including, it's alleged, multiple times in this farmer's field near Tom's house while Cook was on duty.
You're in his police cruiser?
Yeah, always in his police cruiser.
He's assaulting you in a police cruiser?
Yeah, that's correct. Several times.
Although Cook was investigated but never charged, over the years and at different times, Wilson, Callan, Thiessen, and a former teammate of Callan, Travis Pierce, each launched civil suits against Cook and the RCMP. Wilson told us he and his family complained about Cook in 1982, but police say they have no record of that. Thiessen told us another RCMP constable, Cook's roommate, once found him in Cook's bed and did nothing.
2 cops, 2 Mounties in the house. One of them is sleeping with a 14-year-old boy, and the other one does nothing.
Yeah, that's correct.
A decade later, that other Mountie, a fellow coach with Cook on one of those hockey teams, pulled out his gun at an RCMP detachment on Vancouver Island, put it to his head, and pulled the trigger. And now, from Newfoundland's South Shore, where Cook was transferred in '86, more allegations. 2 women tell CBC News Cook cultivated malicious sexual relationships with each of them as teenagers. In a statement, one of them writes, "He kept telling me to relax and trust him." One says he once locked her, terrified, in an RCMP holding cell.
One voice missing in all of this is that of Don Cook, long gone from Abbotsford, having faced questions, lawsuits, and a criminal investigation. For years, he's been living a life, for the most part quietly and far away, in Ontario.
To be clear, Don Cook has always denied sexual misconduct. In fact, in 2010, he sued the Mounties for wrongly investigating him, calling the RCMP strongly homophobic, and said he now suffers depression and panic attacks from all the stress. The suit was settled privately. He said Bob Callan is angry and bitter because Cook once banned him from the hockey team, and that Wilson once failed a lie detector test and is unreliable and his story untrue. We reached Cook by cell phone to offer up an on-camera interview.
I'll speak to my lawyer. I think that would be appropriate. He'd be the one that would respond.
Cook's lawyer later wrote to CBC underlining Cook was investigated but never charged, and that Cook, who's now retired, strenuously denies ever sexually assaulting anyone.
Did he say anything at that?
The RCMP declined comment on this story but has long disputed liability. Last week, it entered into talks toward a settlement with Callan, Thiessen, and Pierce.
Sad part is, he'll always... Seems like he'll always have a small piece of you, sometimes that's hard to let go because you beat yourself up so much to think so many things of, you know, how you should have got out of it or what you should have done different or why were you in that position, you know, for him to be, you know, you to be so vulnerable.
It makes me very angry that nobody listened and that he's still out on the street, and I believe he's probably still doing what he did to us, and you know, everybody has to pay, and that the system didn't stop them when they should have.
If the RCMP settles, it's all too late for Graham Wilson. He abandoned his lawsuit years ago, then effectively he disappeared off the grid until 2017, when someone found his body dead in a trailer in a homeless encampment. He'd overdosed on fentanyl.
In a lot of ways, it has destroyed who I was or who I could have been. My capabilities, the things my dreams, it destroyed all my dreams. Anything I wanted to do in my life, I never did.
Out on the ice, Bob Callan every now and again still laces up and smashes that puck around. These days, it's with his grown son, both hardened by years of chasing justice and a system they say betrayed and failed those who spoke out. Callan's only goal now, he says, is simply for Canadians to know this story and learn from it.
Sometimes it's good to be different. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's not. War! My full name, Gabriella Jude Fletcher. I'm 8 years old, and I'm a Capricorn. Should I have a six-pack? Yeah. Whoa, that looks super cool. My friend said there is boys stuff and girls stuff. There isn't. I wear like stuff was bit for boys. Some people because like, oh, you're just trying to be a boy. I'm not. 1, 2, 3.
I like being friends with you, Gabriella.
Yeah, me too.
Gabby, where are you going to move exactly?
Dalarna.
Is that far away?
Yes. I don't like it here at all. When they said, oh, do you think boys and girls are different? Everybody like, yes. I was gonna say no, but I didn't say anything because I want to be with them then. And they're not though. I'm leaving though tomorrow, going out to the window, bringing candy and sugar with me, and pancakes. Undrar vad det här är.
Tänk om det är din första BH.
Some people in my class are pushing purity now, but I don't really like that. Because you have to go here too. How am I supposed to cut my hair?
You're not allowed to have it above your ears.
Det. Snyggt.
Jag ska bli stor. Få en mörkare röst. Tjejer får ju fan rusare.
Ja. Men jag är lite som en kille i skolan. Så jag går ju runt, killkläder, hänger med killarna. Pratar lite så här mörk röst så här. Men kom då! Typ som killar menar. Amankilego.
Johanna is off this week, and Amy Bell joins us now with the forecast. Amy, I know it was cloudy today and muggy. I love the mugginess, but not so great for you, is it?
No, for those of us with some curl in our hair, and the humidity is our enemy. So it's been not the best day. And just, overall, first day of summer, you're kind of hoping to really jump in there with a punch, but it definitely wasn't that way today. So we had lots of showers move in earlier this afternoon, and they will continue to ramp up overnight and early through tomorrow morning. And of course, sort of Wednesday and Thursday, we're really watching areas of the North and South Thompson, the Kootenay Mountains, and the Upper Columbia District. They will be getting the majority of their rain then, and we do have a risk of some flooding and keeping an eye on the river. So definitely not out of the woods, and with this incredible sort of warm up that we're going to see at the end of the week and into the weekend, that's definitely going to be something as lovely as it will feel that we have to keep an eye on. As you can see, though, still lots of areas of precipitation, as I mentioned, overnight and throughout the day tomorrow. So tomorrow, definitely a real transition day for many areas. And then it's later in the week that we see this ridge of high pressure setting up, and that will bring lots of sunshine really across the province, and those temperatures getting up near the sort of, I'd say, high 20s, even the low 30s possible by the end of the weekend. All this shower activity, though, will predominantly be early tomorrow morning. And then once we get through sort of the morning commute, we'll start to see a drying trend for most areas. It could last a little longer in areas such as Williams Lake and Kelowna. And again, we do have a risk of some thunderstorms still in those unsettled areas. A lot of rain for Dease Lake. You'll get some sunshine for Prince Rupert and Port Hardy as well. Lots of showers in the morning and into the early afternoon. Taking a look at our 5-day, finally seeing that summer-like weather. It is not a drill. It's not summer-like. It is actual summer weather. And so we'll see those temperatures, as I said, getting right up to close to 30 by Sunday.
That is crazy.
It's coming.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
And for this next Indigenous word, we are learning. Norman Guerrero tells us about a sacred teaching in the Squamish language.
Hello, I'm Norman Guerrero from the Squamish Nation, and I'd like you to learn this word in the Squamish language. Wanauhstwai. Wanauhstwai. It means respecting each other. And this word is important because it is a sacred teaching. Thank you for learning.
National Indigenous Peoples Day, happening today on June 21st, is also the summer solstice, so it's just able to wake up and start the day with meaningful prayers, drumming, music, and making sure we start the day off right.
Creator, today is about celebrating our heritage with Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples, to express pride in our rich and diverse culture with our families, friends, neighbors, and visitors from across Canada and the world. Creator, we call upon you today to inspire us, to help us heal relationships so that we can all see the way forward.
We're very honored to be able to hold these gatherings and hold these spaces for everybody to, just be together and to acknowledge and to celebrate our rich Indigenous histories and presents and futures.
Oh, this day is a wonderful day for Indigenous people. I think Marjorie Muse said it best, it's a great day to be Indigenous. And also it's a great day to be, like she said, it's a great day to be Indigenous every day. So it's really for us to celebrate our culture and to share that with one another and just celebrate that.
I am on location at Inu, which is River Lot 11 Indigenous Art Park. It's been a lovely morning here, and my current guest is Zachary Willier, who is a Métis fiddle player.
This one's called Big John McNeil.
does this day mean to you?
You know, it's, like I said, it's a great day to be Indigenous. It really feels wonderful to spread the culture, spread the meaning behind Indigenous Peoples Day, and just to celebrate.
I'm here with Tiffany Shaw, Métis artist, independent curator, as well as an architect with Reimagine Architecture based here in Edmonton. You do have a piece, one of 6 pieces here at Inu River Lot 11 Indigenous Art Park. How did you approach your piece, and tell us a little bit about it?
It's a 4-tiered amphitheater style seating with a sacred circle at the base. And each different step has a different material along the rise of each seat. And it relates to prehistoric time, the fort era, our contemporary time, and the future with each step as you go down.
For people that want to maybe even come down today, a beautiful day, and explore it, Pehonan, am I saying it correctly? And can you tell us what that name means?
Yes, so Pehonan is how I say it, and although maybe it is said a bit differently, it depends which Cree speaker you talk to, which is the waiting place, or as the gathering place I sometimes call it. And I really want this place to, the artwork that I did, to really have a way to give you a view of many things, whether you're thinking about the deep reflective past or the future. I'm really hoping this is a place that you can find calm and joy.
Paddlers from around the world are arriving in Whitehorse this week for the annual Yukon River Quest. It's a marathon paddling race, but this year some participants will be marking a tragic legacy of the famous gold rush route, because the river was also used to send children to residential schools across the territory. And as Anita Bathe reports, for one team, their quest is meant to honor those children who never returned home.
Pauline Frost is preparing for a grueling paddle down the same river her ancestors did.
Well, the River Quest is not for the faint of heart. You go places in your very internal spiritual place and think about those things. You think about your ancestors and what they've had to endure.
They took this journey from their homes in the Arctic to residential school, hundreds of kilometers away.
Bringing the children away from the home, and they're fighting, and the fighting upstream, not knowing what's going to happen. That one's the long one, Alice. Yeah, I know. You gonna try?
Pauline is one of 4 First Nations women who are paddling for one purpose: to show Canadians that the legacy of residential schools is all around them.
So I see the river as, good and bad in that sense, but I also see it as a segue to healing, right? And that's part of the journey down, is just letting go of some of that and giving our story back to the water.
I'm not just racing for myself, I'm racing for, Indigenous children everywhere.
It's important for Pauline to have her daughter, the next generation, on the journey with her.
And every child matters is like a demand for the people to see us. It felt like nobody really acknowledged our struggles, or the abuse, or the people that went missing in residential schools before they found the body in Kamloops.
Faster than we normally are from just with the high water. And
once their journey is over, Frost says the hard work will continue.
Keep this alive for people, and that it's not done. We're not done our work yet.
And she says that until that work is done, she won't be able to rest easy. Anita Bathe, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Okay, and before we go tonight, we are back to learning about Indigenous words. We've reviewed phrases about acknowledging and listening to one another. The last word we are featuring today is in Cree, spoken by Dorothy Visser. It highlights efforts to revitalize languages spoken by different nations across the country.
My name is Dorothy Visser. I am originally from the Salt Lake Cree Nation of Alberta, from the Treaty 6 territory. I would like you to learn this word, Nehiawewin. Nehiawewin. It is Cree language, Nehiawewin, and it means retaining our heritage, and it's important because we lost so much of our language when the children were taken away from families to residential schools and foster care. And it's important to teach our children now, and those of whom want to learn the language, the Hiawatha, because children especially learn so quickly at an early age, and it's important to teach them now because they will never forget if they are taught at an early age. So I thank you for listening. All my relations.
So wonderful tonight to learn all of these Indigenous words and to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you for being with us on CBC Vancouver News. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Now, there is a hockey game, so we'll be online at 6 p.m. That's Facebook, YouTube, and CBC Gem, and we'll be on television after the game is done. Good night.